There are a lot of changes coming to Star Citizen over the next few patches that are a pretty big deal. The item port changes on ships is one of them that will have a really big impact on the way we play the game, but there is a major piece of this puzzle that absolutely needs some attention and nobody from CIG or the community is talking about it, and that is selling. Selling came to the game in patch 3.17 last year, and very similarly to the 3.15 update, with inventory, it was not a proper implementation. Yes, you can find an item in the world and you can sell it, but every standard interaction you would expect to see in a video game from an item selling standpoint doesn't exist in Star Citizen. The current experience is so bad that I haven't heard a single word about it since its inception. Right now, you can find armor, weapons, attachments, and more on players or NPCs and sell them to locations that specialize in selling those specific items. But here's how it works. First, you have to go to a screen at the shop you want to sell to. Then you select the container in which you're selling from. Then you can sell each item one at a time, and each item requires 2 clicks, one to sell and one to confirm it's sold. Now, there are some stackable items now that you can sell more than one at a time, which is great, but the big ticket items like FPS weapons don't stack. This also applies to ship components one at a time, and 2 clicks to sell each item, 1 to sell, and the OK click. This as a baseline for selling in the game is just completely unacceptable. The same went for inventory, which upon its release in 3.15 was not in a shippable state in my opinion. I'm not sure the name of the team, but the team who worked on trolleys and inventory are the same team that introduced selling. And I'm not bringing this up to knock them. It's quite the opposite. I'm bringing this up to praise them. Remember when I mentioned that some stackable items could also sell in stacks at the shops? Well, guess who came back to inventory and improved it greatly in 3.18? That same team. I would argue that they still have a little more work to do to bring the feature to an acceptable standard, like auto-stacking when you loot, things like that, but the inventory and looting are now at least possible, but selling has remained the same since its inception. In my opinion, selling is a feature that must be number 1 on the priority list when it comes to features that need to be worked on in Star Citizen. Without it in a much more polished state, the features currently in the game and the new features coming to patches like 3.19 and beyond just won't really have much of a purpose to them. Features currently in the game like looting and inventory really struggle without a workable selling system. I can think of so many games where players are able to collect items and sell them for currency and buy more useful items in the game through that currency. Now, Star Citizen is probably quite far away from being the economy-driven game that many of us backed for, but the backbone of that system is going to be the buying and selling screens. Without them, there's no interaction between the player and the game economy. Getting this to a better state is now paramount for even more reasons. Remember the launch of 3.18? How many of you with accounts that had a lot of items on it were not able to get into the game? I was one of them. They called these large player databases out as an actual issue for them. Well, guess what happens as we play? Those really large inventories only get larger. If players were able to sell off their inventories more easily, this should definitely help with issues revolving around inflated player banks, essentially. The biggest feature coming to 3.19 related to selling is the new item port system on ships, where we will be able to swap out many weapons and components from NPC and player ships. We are no longer talking about little FPS weapons anymore. The prices of these components can reach over 100,000 Alpha UEC each in-game right now. Players are going to be much more inclined to sell these items, but the experience looks like it's going to be just as bad as it's always been. When highlighting a feature in a patch, CIG has not been great about building up the other features a new one may interact with. 3.18 has been the exception to that rule. With cargo becoming physicalized, the team made all sorts of changes to ships, allowing them to soft death, commodity cargo to be lootable, bed logout changes to make exploitation during piracy hits much less likely, and many more. There is no reason why CIG shouldn't be taking a look at selling during the 3.19 cycle in the same way they looked at the game during 3.18's development. This could single-handedly be one of the most important and ignored features in Star Citizen, but what do you guys think? Leave a comment down below, and as always, like the video if you liked it and subscribe for more in the future, and I'll see you guys in the next video.